There's this word that gets thrown around constantly.
How?
You see it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Under a photo of a sunset or in a yoga studio. You see on the front of wellness magazines next to, I don't know, abs in 30 days.
Right.
Okay.
Enlightenment. It is arguably the most marketed and least understood word in the entire spiritual lexicon. We've kind of turned it into a synonym for just relaxation
Yeah. Feeling good?
or just feeling generally positive about your day.
Exactly. And for most of us, and I'm including myself here, it's a really vague concept. You think, okay, enlightenment, that means you're really chill.
You don't get road rage.
You don't get road rage. Maybe you drink a lot of green tea and you're just unbothered.
Yeah.
But today, we're really going to take a sledgehammer to that soft, fluffy definition.
We have to, because if you actually look at the source material we have today, and, if you cross-reference it with the heavy hitters of spiritual history like Yogananda or Ramana Maharshi enlightenment, isn't just about feeling good.
It's not a mood.
It is not a mood. It's a fundamental shift in the physics of how a human being operates. I mean, we are talking about actual biological changes, massive shifts in time perception, and the ability to interact with matter and energy in ways that, frankly, modern science is only just beginning to grapple with.
And our guide for this deep dive he's fascinating. His name is Osman, but he's better known as the blind Muslim yogi.
And just that title alone tells you we're in for a pretty interesting ride.
It really does.
It's a convergence of worlds that you almost never see in one person. You have the Islamic Sufi tradition, the ancient yogic tradition, and this very rigorous scientific perspective all rolling into one. And he's not a newbie.
Not at all.
We're looking at a transcript from a man with 50 years of practice and 46 years of teaching experience.
Half a century. That's half a century of deep, deep work. And here is the kicker that just adds another layer to this. He's been blind for the last 2.5 years. But as we're going to find out, blindness, for someone at his level, doesn't mean seeing darkness. He claims he sees energy fields directly.
And that ability to see energy is where this deep dive takes a turn from, interesting spiritual theory to high-stakes reality. Because Osman isn't just a meditation teacher.
Right.
He has a very specific, very intense profession. He is a bioenergy healer who specializes in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses.
I really want to flag that immediately because it's such a crucial distinction. We are not talking about fixing a sore back or helping someone de-stress after a bad week at the office.
Yeah.
This is different.
No. Not at all. We are talking about the absolute deep end of the pool. We're talking about cases where medical science has essentially said there's nothing more we can do.
The end of the line.
The end of the line. Vitals are dropping. The systems are shutting down. That is when people call him. And he claims an impeccable success record in these dire life or death situations.
It's like the ER room of spirituality. And he makes it very clear this isn't some casual practice. It's not a game. It involves significant risk to himself.
Right. The risk factor is huge. It requires a level of expertise that he says is incredibly, incredibly rare.
So the mission today is to unpack all of this. We're going to break down the 4 stages of consciousness he lays out. We're going to talk about the actual mechanics of bliss, or samadhi, as he calls it. And then we are going to look at the physics of how someone can heal a terminal patient on the other side of the world just by thinking about them.
It sounds impossible, I know, I get it. But when you look at the framework he lays out and then you compare it to the accounts in classics like Autobiography of a Yogi or the writings of Gopi Krishna, it starts to look less like magic and more like a very advanced, very subtle technology.
The technology of consciousness.
Exactly.
So let's get into that framework. Because before we can even talk about enlightenment or miracle healing, we have to understand where we are right now. The source breaks consciousness down into 4 distinct levels. And most of us, he says, are completely stuck in level 1.
Level 1 is the waking state. But even within this waking state, there's this massive divide. He says the vast majority of people are operating in what's called the beta frequency.
Beta. I feel like I know this one personally.
Yeah.
This is the stress state, right? The default mode for modern life.
It's the survival state, 100%. It's your brain just processing data, reacting to threats, trying to overcome immediate challenges. It's high frequency, it's chaotic, and it is absolutely exhausting.
It's the feeling of running from one fire to the next, constantly checking notifications, constantly in a state of low-grade fight or flight.
That's it, exactly. It's that inner monologue that just won't shut up. The to-do lists, the worries. That's beta.
Okay, so that's beta. That's the baseline for most of us. But he mentions there's another way to be awake, a level 1.5, if you will, the alpha state.
Right. And alpha is still a waking state. You are fully functional, you're walking around, you're doing your job, but the frequency of the brain waves has slowed way down.
So what does that feel like?
It's characterized by being centered, focused, and incredibly calm. And what's fascinating is that Osman uses his own life as a case study for this. He says he entered this alpha state naturally without trying around age 12.
12 years old. I mean, at 12, I was definitely not in an alpha state. I was probably panicking about homework or, my social standing. A total beta fest.
Well, his teachers noticed it. They commented on it. He was just calm, unshakable, and he attributes his entire professional survival to this state.
His professional survival. How so?
He's been a self-employed entrepreneur for 30 years, and he points out this brutal statistic. Something like 80% of entrepreneurs fail within the first 2 years.
Because the stress eats them alive.
It eats them alive. The uncertainty, the pressure, it's a beta wave nightmare. Self-employment is a high-stress, high-uncertainty environment. To survive that for 3 decades requires a brain that doesn't just fry under pressure. He says the only reason he could navigate that minefield was because his baseline wasn't beta, it was alpha.
I love that distinction.
Yeah.
Because it tells us that spirituality or meditation isn't just about going to a cave and chanting. It's a productivity hack.
It's a survival mechanism for the real world.
Exactly. If you're an alpha, you aren't freaking out. You're executing. You're seeing the problem clearly instead of just reacting to the fear.
Precisely. You're processing the world far more efficiently. But, and this is a key point he makes, alpha is not enlightenment. It's just a better way of being awake.
Okay.
To go deeper, we have to drop down a level. To level 2, the theta state.
Theta. Now, usually we associate this with sleep, right? Or
Yeah.
just as you're about to fall asleep.
Yes. Theta is that bridge. It's the frequency of the dream state of REM sleep. It's also the state you enter during hypnosis. You know that feeling when you're just drifting off and reality starts to get a little bendy and your thoughts get weird?
Yeah, you sometimes have those little muscle jerks.
That's theta. The source mentions something interesting here about meditation. He says for him, transitioning from being wide awake from alpha to this theta state takes this 2 to 5 seconds.
2 to 5 seconds.
Wow.
That's a staggering level of control. For me, that's a slow 20-minute slide if I'm lucky.
For most people, exactly. For a master practitioner, it's a switch they can just flip. In advanced meditation, specifically in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, this correlates with a stage called pratyahara.
Pratyahara, what is that?
It means the withdrawal of the senses. You are essentially cutting the feed from the outside world. The sounds are still there, the feeling of the air on your skin is still there, but you've unplugged the inputs to the brain. You've turned your awareness completely inward.
So you're awake, but you aren't here anymore. You're in your own internal universe.
You're inward. But then you go even deeper, and this is level 3, the delta state.
This is the deep end of the pool.
The deepest. Delta is deep, dreamless sleep. In meditation terms, he calls it nirmalati, which means the no-thought state. The mind just stops, the internal chatter, gone. Emotions stop. There is no, I am meditating. There is just being, pure existence without a narrator.
And this leads to that really trippy phenomenon he describes, time distortion.
This is one of the most consistent reports from deep meditators, whether it's, monks in the Himalayas or mystics like Osman. He describes meditating for 18 to 20 hours a day at his peak.
18 hours, just sitting still. I can't even imagine that. It sounds like torture.
It does to a beta state mind, but he says subjectively it felt like 20 or 30 minutes.
That just blows my mind. 18 hours feeling like 20 minutes. How is that physically possible? What is happening to the brain?
It comes down to the physics of perception. I mean, think about how we measure time. We measure it through events, thoughts, emotions, sensory inputs. I'm hungry. My leg itches. I'm bored. What was that noise?
They're like markers on a timeline.
Exactly. They're little ticks on the clock of your consciousness. If you remove the markers, if you have no thought and no emotion, time literally ceases to exist for you. You step out of the stream.
So you're just suspended.
And restored. This is so important. He emphasizes that delta is biologically necessary. It is a repair state.
Right.
He uses the alcohol example, which I think is great because it's so relatable. Why do you feel like you were run over by a truck after a night of heavy drinking? It's not just dehydration.
It's the sleep, isn't it? You get bad sleep.
You get terrible sleep. Alcohol physically prevents the brain from slipping into delta. You might be unconscious, you might be passed out, but you are not repairing. The brain is stuck in a lighter, chaotic state.
So you're essentially awake in a coma, but your
Yeah.
body isn't getting that deep cellular level reboot.
Precisely. So, okay, we have beta, the stress state, we have alpha, the flow state, we have theta, the dream state, and delta, the deep repair state.
But then he says there is something beyond delta. And this is where things get really, really wild. He calls it samadhi.
Samadhi, this is the high of existence, and it's not a metaphor. He describes it as Satchitananda, which translates to truth, consciousness, bliss.
So how does that happen? What triggers it?
It happens when you can sit in that delta, no thought state for extended periods, he says usually 90 minutes or more, and suddenly the system floods with a natural chemistry. All of a sudden, confusing life problems just have these crystal clear answers, like tap, 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 he says, just downloaded.
And then there's the ecstasy.
An ecstasy that is so physical, so powerful, it feels heavy.
He compares it to psychedelics, right?
Hmm?
DMT, mushrooms, ayahuasca.
He does, and he's very direct about it. He says the chemical signature is likely very similar. The brain releases its own endogenous DMT, its own cannabinoids, but the difference is it's self-induced and it's controlled.
Right, there's no external variable.
Exactly. It doesn't come with the nausea or the paranoia or the potential for a bad trip. It is pure, unadulterated ecstasy generated by your own body.
And when he says ecstasy, he really doesn't mean, oh, this is nice. He describes it as a physical weight, like a force.
A ton of bricks was the phrase he used. He tells this story of his first experience. He was 19. He was chanting a mantra for hours, and suddenly, boom, he collapsed, unconscious. The bliss was so intense, the body basically short-circuited. It couldn't handle the voltage.
And the loss of speech. That was the detail that just stuck with me. He mentioned a practitioner who tried to hold on to that samadhi state for an hour and literally couldn't speak for 40 days afterward.
40 days. It speaks to the intensity of the energy. There's another writer, Gopi Krishna, who wrote this seminal book, Kundalini, The Evolutionary Energy in Man.
I've heard of it.
He describes similar phenomena. He went through a spontaneous awakening and talked about this liquid light entering his brain that was so overwhelming it made functioning in the normal world almost impossible at first. The nervous system is just overwhelmed. The speech centers go offline because all the processing power is being diverted to this massive energetic download.
It's like your internal computer is running a program so huge that all the other apps just freeze.
That's a perfect analogy. And it's interesting because he notes you don't even necessarily need formal meditation to hit this. He mentions Mirabai, the famous mystic poet from India.
Right, she was a devotee of Krishna.
And she achieved these incredibly high states through pure, intense devotion, through singing and chanting. She wasn't doing formal breathwork or yoga postures.
So it's about the intensity of focus, not the specific technique.
It seems to be. Whether it's prayer or breathwork or chanting, the result is his biological override of bliss. But here's the trap, and it's a trap that he says catches so many spiritual seekers. You experience this bliss, this samadhi, and you think,
I've made it. I'm enlightened.
naturally. You hit the bliss button, you fall over, you think they're done. But Osman says, no, not even close.
And this is the most critical distinction in the entire source material, isn't it?
It's everything. Samadhi is an experience. Enlightenment is a permanent state.
Okay, let's really unpack that. An experience versus a state. What's the difference?
He uses this great analogy. The flashlight versus the sun. Ordinary consciousness, even with these amazing moments of samadhi, is like walking around in the pitch dark with a flashlight.
Okay.
You can see things in the beam. You have these incredible moments of clarity and bliss, but the surrounding darkness is still there. Enlightenment is when the sun comes up.
The light is everywhere.
Everywhere, all the time. It is 247. It doesn't go away. The background of your reality is now light, not darkness.
24/7. It has to mean even when you're sleeping.
Right. Exactly. And this is what he calls the sleep test. It is the ultimate litmus test for a master. Osman says that for a truly enlightened being, there is no break in awareness. Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, it's all one continuous, unbroken stream of consciousness.
And he tells that incredible story about Sri Yukteswar, who was Yogananda's guru. This is from Autobiography of a Yogi, isn't it?
Yes, it's a classic account, and it illustrates this point perfectly. Yogananda is sleeping in the same room as his guru. He wakes up in the middle of the night and sees Yukteswar lying there, just dead still.
No breath, no heartbeat.
It looks like rigor mortis has set in. Yogananda, gets terrified. He thinks his master has died. He goes over to check his pulse, to touch him, and the guru just snaps without opening his eyes. Don't touch me.
Don't touch me while looking completely dead.
That's incredible. Because he wasn't dead. And he wasn't asleep in our sense of the word. He was in such a deep state of conscious suspension, what is sometimes called nirvikalpa samadhi, that his biological functions had paused, but his awareness was sharper than ever. He was fully aware of Yogananda's movement, his fear, every thought in the room.
That is the benchmark.
That's the benchmark. If you lose consciousness when you fall asleep, if you get lost in your dreams and forget you're dreaming, you aren't fully enlightened yet.
That is such a high bar. I mean, I lose consciousness during a boring movie.
It is an incredibly high bar. And there are other examples. Ramana Maharshi, another great sage, was said to live in what's called sahaja samadhi, the effortless state.
Effortless.
Meaning it was his natural default state. Whether he was talking to you or eating or seemingly asleep, that background of absolute unbroken awareness never flickered.
Which brings us to Osman's own verdict on himself. Here is a guy who can see energy, he can heal the dying from a distance, he can meditate for 18 hours straight. So, is he enlightened?
He says no. Categorically no.
That's incredibly humble.
It's just honest. It's precise. He says, I still dream. I still forget the waking world when I'm in the dream. I still have to manage the samadhi experience. I don't live in it permanently. And I think that shows you the integrity of the source. He isn't selling a title. He's describing a physics that he is still in the process of navigating.
Right. But even if he isn't enlightened by that ridiculously high standard, his capabilities are.
Well, let's talk about his vision. He's been clinically blind for 2.5 years, but he says he doesn't see black.
No. If you or I close our eyes, we see darkness, maybe some, little specks of light, phosphenes. He sees the energetic schematic of the universe.
The source code?
The source code. He describes seeing the Ida and Pingala channels.
These are the core energy currents in yoga anatomy, right? The subtle nervous system.
Correct. And he sees them in color. He sees Pingala, which is the masculine kinetic solar energy, as a kind of pinkish red. And he sees Ida, the feminine creative lunar energy, as a bluish gray.
And he explains the anatomy of it. He says he can see them crossing over at the third eye, the Ajna chakra, which is right between the eyebrows.
Which is the classic explanation for why the right hemisphere of the brain controls the left side of the body, and vice versa. He's literally seeing the wiring diagram.
He's seeing the wiring.
Yeah.
And he calls this state of vision twilight vision. He says when his third eye is active, pitch darkness becomes this constant twilight illumination. He can see the energy fields of people, of objects, of spaces.
It's a reminder that what we call sight is just the brain interpreting a tiny, tiny band of the electromagnetic spectrum.
A sliver.
If you alter the receiver, the brain, you can start to pick up different channels.
It's like he switched from AM radio to FM and now to, I don't know, satellite radio.
Yeah.
The signals were always there. Most of us just don't have the tuner to pick them up.
Okay, so we have this picture of these high-level masters. They have twilight vision, they have bliss on tap, they can consciously suspend their heartbeat. But then there's this nagging question, the paradox. If these guys are so powerful, why do they get sick? Why do they die?
It's the question everyone asks, and it's a valid one. Ramakrishna Paramahansa, one of the greatest saints of modern India, died of throat cancer. His primary disciple, Swami Vivekananda, died at 39 with complications from diabetes. Yogananda died in his 50s. If you can control matter, why can't you fix your own pancreas?
It seems like a huge contradiction.
Yeah.
Osman has a really interesting take on this.
It's a complete reframing of death. He breaks it down to capacity versus choice.
Capacity versus choice.
He insists they could cure themselves. The capacity is there. He references a story about Yogananda reportedly regrowing a lost tooth, which is biologically impossible for a normal adult human, just to demonstrate that he could manipulate matter in his own body.
So the power is there.
The power is there, but the desire to stay is not.
He uses the squatter camp analogy for this. This was brutal, but so effective.
It really puts it in perspective. He says, imagine the physical world, this body, this planet, is a squatter camp. It's dirty, there's no running water, it's a constant struggle for survival.
Not a great place to be.
Now imagine the higher dimensions, where he says the causal body, or the light body resides, is a 5-star hotel, or a palace.
Right.
These masters, through their practice, have developed their light body. They have the key to the hotel. They only came down to the squatter camp to do a job.
A mission.
A mission. To deliver a message, to start a movement, like Yogananda bringing yoga to the West, to help a few people out of the mud. Once that job is done, why on earth would they choose to stay in the squatter camp?
That is a powerful shift in perspective. We view death as a tragedy, as a failure, because we think this is the only place to be. We're clinging to our tent in the squatter camp.
Exactly. They view death as checking out of a rough motel and going home to the palace. It's a conscious choice, a liberation. The term for it is mahasamadhi. It's when a master consciously and willingly exits their body. It's not an accident, it's a planned departure.
But, and this is where we need to really lean in, Osman is staying. He's still here. And he's using his abilities for something very specific. We touched on this in the intro, but I want to dive deep here because this is really the core of what makes him unique in today's world. His work with critical care and terminal illness.
This is where we leave the theoretical physics and enter the emergency room. And I want to be very, very clear about the specialization here. Most energy healers, and there are many good ones, work on general well-being.
Right, like my chakra feels blocked, or I have a headache, or I'm just so stressed out.
And that's valid, important work, but Osman is operating in a completely different tier. He calls it critical care bioenergy healing.
That name itself is intense.
It is. He works with cases where traditional allopathic medicine has hit a wall. We are talking about stage 4 diagnoses, multiple organ failure, comas, the moments where the doctors take the family into the hallway and say, you need to prepare for the worst.
And he claims to have an impeccable success record in these very specific last-ditch scenarios, which begs the question, why is he one of the only ones doing this? If this kind of energy healing works, why aren't there more people in the ICU doing it?
Because of the risk. And this is something most people, even in the wellness world, do not understand about high-level energy work. It is not free. It is not just sending love and light from a safe distance.
Oh, what's this?
When you connect your consciousness, your energetic field, with someone who is actively dying, someone whose system is riddled with cancer or a massive infection, you are bridging your finely tuned system with theirs.
You're opening a door between the two of you.
You are stepping into a burning building to pull them out. He talks about the blowback. The entropy, the chaotic signal of that illness. It tries to rush into your system. It's like opening a high-pressure valve.
So the healer can actually get sick themselves.
They can take on the sickness. They can get sick, or worse. If the healer does not have a rock-solid energy structure, if their own causal body isn't developed enough to be impervious, it's incredibly dangerous.
So he's basically an energetic firefighter. He's built the psychic and energetic equivalent of a hazmat suit that 99.9% of healers simply don't have.
That is the perfect way to put it. It's high-stakes hazmat work for the soul. And he positions himself as a specialist for the very rare few who are in these desperate situations. And yes, he's very clear that it is an expensive elite service.
Which some people might have a problem with.
They might. But when you understand the mechanics, the decades of training, the literal physical danger to the healer, the immense concentration and energy required for each case, it starts to make sense. This is not something you can do casually for 100 people a day. It's an intricate, high-level intervention.
So how does he actually do it? He mentioned he can do this telepathically from anywhere in the world.
He uses the WhatsApp comparison, which I think is great because it strips away all the woo-woo mysticism. He says connecting to a patient in Moscow while he's sitting in Istanbul is just like a network connection.
Like finding someone's IP address.
Exactly. He says the brain is a transceiver. It sends and receives signals. Once he tunes into and locks onto the specific frequency of the patient, their unique conscious IP address, the distance becomes irrelevant. This aligns perfectly with what we see in quantum physics regarding non-locality and entanglement.
Where two particles can be connected and instantaneously affect each other no matter how far apart they are.
That's the principle. Once the connection is made, the energy transfer is instant.
So he connects. And then what? He's pushing good energy in and pulling bad energy out?
It's more like he's retuning their system. He's providing a coherent, high-energy signal that reminds the patient's body how to function correctly. The only thing he says he cannot fix remotely is crystallized muscular problems, like deep knots or structural damage that needs actual physical kneading.
Like everything else.
But organ failure, systemic infections, autoimmune disorders, that is all energy. It's the software of the body. And he says he can debug the software remotely.
It's fascinating that he positions this not as magic or faith healing, but as an additional factor. He's not telling people to stop seeing their doctors.
Never. He's saying, use my expertise when traditional methods are failing. He's saying, when the doctors hit a wall, I have a ladder.
And that ladder is built on 50 years of relentless discipline. It's not a gift he just woke up with one day. It's a skill he honed through millions of hours of practice. Which brings us to the timeline.
Oh man, the timeline. This was probably the most humbling part of the entire source for me. We live in this 30-day challenge culture.
Totally. Get enlightened in a weekend workshop. Become a master in 3 easy steps.
And Osman just destroys that entire idea. He tells the story of asking his own teacher when he was younger, when will I make progress? When will I get there?
A question we all ask.
And his teacher just looks at him, deadpan, and says, it will take you 10 million years.
10 million years. I think I would have just quit right there. I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm out. I'll take up golf.
It's a shock to the system. But the teacher explained it. He said, you have 10 million years of samskaras, subconscious impressions, karma, genetic baggage, ancestral trauma, all stored up in your system. You have to clear that.
So every thought, every action, every experience from countless lifetimes has left a residue that needs to be cleaned.
That's the idea. So it's a long game.
The longest game.
He says it might take 7 lifetimes of intense, dedicated practice. It might take decades of focus just to make a noticeable dent. It explains why he doesn't claim to be enlightened yet. He views the development of the human mechanism as a slow biological evolution.
Like evolving a species, but within one person.
Exactly. First, you have to perfect the physical body. Then you develop the energy body. And only after that can you begin to build the final vehicle, the light body or the causal body.
And he says you need that causal body to be fully developed to survive the continuous bliss of enlightenment.
You absolutely need it. This connects right back to Gopi Krishna's warnings about premature Kundalini awakening. If you force that immense energy up through a system that isn't ready for it, it's dangerous. It can cause psychological or physical damage.
It's like trying to run the power of a nuclear reactor through the wiring of a toaster.
Perfect analogy. The toaster will melt. It will catch fire. The practice isn't just about waking up. It's about systematically rewiring of the toaster into a reactor that can handle the current. And that takes time, it takes patience, and it takes a deep, deep humility.
So as we wrap this up, we've covered a massive landscape here. We've gone from the daily stress of the beta state to the focused flow of the entrepreneur's alpha state. We've looked at the time-bending nature of delta sleep. We've explored the overwhelming physical high of samadhi and the twilight vision of the third eye. And we've looked at this incredibly serious life-saving work of bioenergy healing for the critically ill.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
So what is the takeaway here? For the person listening who maybe isn't trying to levitate or heal people remotely and who definitely doesn't have 10 million years to spare, why does this all matter?
I think it matters because it redefines human potential on every level. Even if you just aim for the alpha state, that calm, centered focus, you could change your career, you could change your stress levels, you could save your health.
It's practical. It's not just esoteric.
It is deeply practical. If you simply understand the importance of delta sleep and prioritize it, you stop sabotaging your own recovery every night. And on a larger scale, it opens the door to the possibility that we are so much more than just these biological machines. Osman's work with terminal illness suggests that consciousness is non-local.
That we're connected.
That we are connected in ways that defy our standard materialist physics.
And if you are in that desperate situation or you know someone who is, it's a reminder that the word impossible, that just means beyond our current understanding.
Right.
There are specialists out there, rare as they are, like Osman, who are operating on a different set of rules. And yes, it requires a high level of commitment to engage them, but the possibility exists.
Exactly. And that leads to the final provocative thought he leaves us with. It's about the very nature of reality itself.
The mosquito.
The mosquito. A mosquito lives its whole life in maybe 2 months. To that mosquito, that is a lifetime. It feels real, it feels long, it has dramas, it finds food, it avoids danger. We look at it and say, it's just a blip.
A tiny blip.
So Osman asks, when we are in a dream at night, we are totally convinced that world is real. Then we wake up and we think this world is real. But if time is relative and reality is subjective,
Are we just the mosquito?
or are we currently in a much longer, more consistent, more detailed dream that we just haven't woken up from yet?
That is definitely going to keep me up tonight.
Yeah.
But hopefully in a good alpha state kind of way. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.